Hi, in this video, I'm aiming to show you what it takes to go from nothing in your infrastructure to everything you need for fastest visual analytics for your big data. As an example, here is what I'm trying to achieve. The scenario I'm trying to simulate is of a large organization which totally understands that we can unlock a huge potential from the big data that already exists in the organization, but only and only if we can find a way to break free from the data silos among the departments and make it super easy, super easy for people to fuse the little data that they have to the big data in the organization. And what can be a better example of this than taking data from two different government departments, the Ministry of Education and maybe from Ministry of Tax or Revenue, which kind of operate independently, and we can combine the data from these departments and gain insights from correlation analysis. Well, thanks to Open Data Initiative from Singapore government, which can act as a sample dataset in this case. And I want to show you what it takes to go from nothing, which is go from scratch to setting up Hadoop cluster with Cloudera, Zoomdata, and creating the Fusion data source to support this task. So what I'm aiming really is to cover how to install Zoomdata on Linux, how to set up Cloudera cluster for big data, then how to connect Zoomdata to talk to HDFS, combine the HDFS data with other data source, perform visual analytics, and show you all this well within 15 minutes because that's all it should take for you to understand how to solve an important problem in your organization. So let's get started. I'm going to have 4 Linux servers, 3 of them to be allocated to Cloudera and 1 to run Zoom Data Server. Setting up Zoom Data is all about executing this little script which will bring all it needs to set up Zoom Data on your Linux machine. Once the script finishes, it'll start the Zoom Data service daemon in the background, and when you are ready you can go to the browser, and over HTTPS if you visit the port 8443 you should see something like this. You have to register yourself as a user in order to enjoy the free trial, and also supply the administrative and supervisor passwords for your environment. And when you log in as an admin, you should see something like this, and which essentially means you have Zoom data all set to get started. "90% of the time, the people who use Zoom data, they just need these simple steps. To set up Cloudera, you have to first install the Cloudera Manager, and to install Cloudera Manager, you have got a Cloudera Manager installer. So get the installer, change the permission as you see here, and when you execute that, it is going to pop up a simple step-by-step wizard to accomplish all the tasks. Accept the license terms and a bunch of stuff, and it should be on its way to install the Cloudera Manager. So we will need Cloudera Manager to then further install the whole cluster. Once you have Cloudera Manager ready, then you can just go in, log in as an admin over here, and again a bunch of license terms that you've got to accept, and it'll present you the options of the Cloudera subscription. You can choose whatever you want, and next. At this point we have to tell the Cloudera Manager which nodes will be added to our cluster. There is an easy way to do that. As you see on your screen, specify the domain and the range. Here we are saying include the nodes from 0 to 2. It will go to the network, search for these nodes, give you the list. You pick and choose and proceed. It'll need another JDK install, so that's why it'll ask you for accepting the terms, and it'll also need some information to connect to those nodes. Once you've supplied that, the installer will go ahead and start preparing your cluster with all the basic stuff that is needed for Cloudera to function. Keep in mind, this is not installing Hadoop just yet. This is the Cloudera Manager setting up the whole cluster so that it can manage and later install all the services. Once the Cloudera setup is complete, then it's the time for us to install the services. I'm choosing Hadoop Core with Spark here, but you can choose whatever you want. Once you have made that choice, this is the time when you have to tell the Cloudera Manager what roles will be assigned to which node, right? This is the place where the configuration related to HDFS, yarn, and everything else will be asked. Once you have supplied that, it'll ask you to review the changes, review your configuration. After this, it's going to go and start deploying all the Hadoop services. Now, when that's done, Hadoop is ready and hence the HDFS should be ready too. So here you see I've got the HDFS directory and also have already ingested some sample data that I was talking about in the beginning. It will be good to check if our data is available using the HDFS server, using the HDFS full URL. So this is an example of the fact that it is working all fine. Now we can go to Zoomdata and try to create a data source which will connect to HDFS. So this is my new HDFS data source. Here you just need to specify the full HDFS URL path for where the data exists. And because this is a CSV, we have to specify the separator. It will then present the sample data and will give you options to further specify how to interpret the different columns. A lot of these things are pre-filled, pre-identified for you, but in case you think that's not what you want, then you can go and make changes to that. You can specify how the data will be refreshed, and you can specify which visualizations are relevant to this data source. And you also get a chance to customize any specific parameters for that visualization if you would like. Once you go ahead and save this data source, almost immediately and automatically you'll be able to go ahead and start analyzing this data. What you see in front of you is the operating revenue data which was sitting there in HDFS, pulled out and being rendered for you here. You should save this visualization on a dashboard so that you can get to it later. You see now I have two data sets which are coming from two different data sources. This is the government expenditure on education by year, and this is a totally different data set than the data from revenue department. Now what we can do over here is try to fuse the data about educational expenditure and the operating revenue. To do that, we're going and trying to create a new data source called Fusion Data Source, which presents the existing list of data sources which can be combined, as you see here. So what we need to do is, after making a choice of the data sources, we pick the specific attribute that needs to be combined. In this case, it's going to be the expenditure year as well as the uh, year from the operating revenue data. And after that is defined, we are very close to finish our task on Fusion data source. Now when you go ahead and create the visualization for this data source, Zoomdata already knows a lot of stuff about your data and will present to you something really interesting. What you see here is the operating revenue versus the education expenditure, and it is open to the interpretation for the analyst. That brings us to the end of this video. Thank you. I'm just an email away.